I'm gonna do a test on diffusion today. I like to test my things all the time because that makes me better as a filmmaker. That makes my images better because I know exactly what I'm dealing with. Right now I'm using the Aperture 200D, the original one, with the Light Dome 2 with the strongest piece of diffusion that comes with that particular modifier. Now there's also the inner baffle, so right now I have 2 layers of diffusion technically, but I think I can make it softer. What happens when you make it softer is you eliminate some shadows, your skin becomes just a little more clear, any imperfections kind of go away. Now, what I'm going to use to achieve this is a cheap piece of fabric. This fabric I bought on Amazon for about $15, and it's just a small, thin, sorry, it's not small. It's a really kind of see-through-ish piece of material that will allow the light to pass through easily, but it will break it down a little. So what I'll have to do is put this up in front of the dome, and then I'll have to bump the light up just a bit to get the exposure right. And we're gonna see what this looks like compared to what that looks like. So I'm just gonna clamp this on to a C-stand on the arm, bring it up right in front of the light, and we'll see what it looks like. Now the diffusion is front of the other diffusion, so now I'm being double diffused. Because of the size of the room, it's actually pretty close to the diffuser itself. It's probably less than a foot, but it will still help. What I'm gonna have to do now is bump up my exposure because I'm just a slight bit underexposed, and then we'll see what it looks like in comparison. I went from 37% to just under 50, so not a huge increase, but this should be a nicer, more pleasing image. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a shot right now of this, and then I'm gonna put the screen side by side. I'm gonna match them best I can in post so that we can see what the difference is. This should be a lot softer. This should look way nicer on my face, just because you're going through a bunch of layers of diffusion. It should just soften this up so much and make it look like a really nice, pleasing image. And it's not very far from my face. It's literally right off camera. It's right here, and it's hitting my face at a 45-degree angle, which is ideal. And it's kind of right behind the camera. So I'm getting not so much a Rembrandt look, but I'm getting most of this filled. Keep in mind, I also have a hair light, which is just a tube behind me, just to kind of make it look a little better. And then there's obviously some lights in the background, but they haven't changed. So we're gonna just see the overall image based on this. In my first set of tests, I noticed that it's very, very similar. The shots with the extra diffusion compared to the shots without that extra diffusion are almost the same. Like, I would not be able to discern a difference if I didn't know any better. What I think I should do, which could be better, is to pull the diffusion fabric away from the light, like give it a little more distance for light to travel through. And I think that will give me a softer look. So I might try that now, but it's not gonna be a side-by-side comparison. I'm just gonna use what my skin looks like for my own personal test to see how much of a difference it makes. So I'm gonna have to pull the camera back a little bit, keep my key light where it is, but just bring the diffusion a little bit closer to me, giving it that space to diffuse even more, just distance-wise. So stay tuned. I'm gonna go set that up, and I'll do a little talking after that. So we're in basically the same setup. I just pushed everything back except the light. The 200D with the light dome is where it was, and it's probably 5-6 feet beyond the fabric. And I seem to be a little underexposed, so let's try bump this up. So bringing this setup forward, everything except the light, I have to have the light now at full power. And it's not that far back. This is a small room. It's only maybe 6 feet back from the edge of the camera to the diffusion frame. So not a ton of space. I think I added 5 feet to it. This is where this will be softer, but you're gonna need a lot more power in your light. So I have more powerful light, and it should work a lot better in this scenario, but I just wanna test with this particular light because it's easy, it's set up, and it's more of an understanding about diffusion. So I kinda wanna see what this looks like now and see how it changed based on the last few shots, because we pushed everything back. And if it's not a huge change, I might switch to the more powerful light and see how that goes. Diffusion's awesome. It always makes everything better, but it's an extra moving part. So keep that in mind if you're gonna try and set this up. So what I noticed happening was when I brought everything back to the back of the room, there was too much light everywhere and it was spilling, and there was not as much shadow on my face, which I actually like. That happened in the beginning because everything was in the far corner and there was enough space between the lighting setup, the rig setup, and the wall to get that shadow. So what I'm gonna try and do is bring the diffusion back, get the softest look, keep the light at full power, and then put some negative fill up to see if I can get that shadow back. And that should give me the softest image with the same contrast as the beginning. So I'm gonna try that right now. The diffusion fabric is back where it was, and I have some negative fill here to try and get that shadow back. Everything else is the same. I just wanted to try and get that good look. And I realized that the more light you have and the bigger the distance is, like the bigger the source is, you're gonna need to get those shadows back, because this is gonna start wrapping things. It's gonna hit the wall, it's gonna be spilling everywhere, and you need that control back. So hopefully this blanket gives me the negative fill that I need to get that shadow side back on my face. Now, I just want to point out that practicing is one of the greatest things you can do in terms of anything, but in this case, cinematography. There's so many factors that go into a nice looking image that the more you practice, you'll start noticing little nuances and little tiny things that'll make your image stand out, your product stand out. And just like anything, practice makes perfect. I set up these things all the time for upcoming gigs. I set this up for an upcoming gig because I need to see what it looks like before I show up somewhere and wing it. Right? I want to have that confidence. I want to know what it looks like. I want to know how the light's going to react. I want to know how the camera's going to react. I want to know how everything looks before I get there, because then I can just make it happen. I'm pretty quick on my feet, but having that knowledge is so key. Thanks for watching this random video about diffusion. Really, thanks for watching me test my own gear. I'm going to try and do this more, and hope you all have a great day, and see you on the next one.